Hey, and welcome back to Danny's Dossier. This is chapter 9 now, and we're on the final set in this chapter of the collection which we've been through since the start. So this will be the final few pages, and I'm going to try and get through them in this episode, so I'll try and keep things moving a little fast. But if I show you, let's try and spin it around. This is, I don't know if you can see that. There you go, should be able to see that now. Got the usual signature, I believe, there, with what they normally call like a flourish or something at the bottom. You can see that all right. It is a little faint, this one, so I think we'll be all right with the translation. But yeah, we've got a few signatures in the margin. We've got this is a slightly different stamp. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try and get enough close so we can get a zoom. But that stamp there says Alanson, or Alancon, whichever way you want to pronounce it. But yeah, I would say Alanson, and that is their stamp. It's still very nice and neat. Same sort of writing that we've been having in the past. But yeah, I was trying to see some names that I see on there earlier. I think Bordin is on there again, which I believe is, if you can see that there. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I won't keep you long. That's the one we're loading up. And let's get it loaded up and translated. Bear with me. There you go, guys, all loaded up. You can see that there. I've actually found keeping a little bit of distance is better for your focus on the documents and the writing from Google Gemini.
Welcome to Chapter 9 of the Dossier. We are turning the pages back even further. This document takes us to 1750, making it the oldest piece of the puzzle we've translated so far. I have transcribed the original French and provided a clean, plain text English translation below for your narration. Transcription, original French. Top left et margin notes. 2 juillet 1750. Seconde. 5e code 12. Main text. À tous ceux qui s'y présentent, lettres verront. Salut. Savoir, faisons que. Du 10 juillet avant midi, l'an 1750. Par devant nous, Louis Bordin et Pierre Lecomte. Notaires royaux garde-notes héréditaires de la ville de Antenetec. Bellême et paroisse y annexées sous-signées. Furent présents François Binois-Laboureur et Anne Luneau, sa femme demeurant paroisse de Saint-Jean-de-la-Forest, Pierre Gouin-Laboureur, et Catherine Binois, sa femme demeurant paroisse de Saint-Aubin-des-Groix, les dites femmes de l'heure. Maris bien et dûment autorisées pour l'effet des présentes, lesquelles ont reconnu avoir vendu, éparcé, présentent, vendent, cèdent, quittent et abandonnent, dès aujourd'hui héritalement et pour toujours à l'avenir promettent, et s'obligent solidairement un d'eux. Seul et pour le tout sans division NY discussion. Renonciant au bénéfice des dits droits, garantir de leur fait et promesse suivante qui est que la rente ci-après leur appartient comme héritier de Louis Binois leur père et beau-père. Au sieur Louis Jean Bordin, marchand et changeur royal au Bellême, y demeurant paroisse de Saint-Sauveur présent et acceptant, tant pour lui que pour Dame Geneviève Léra. English translation, margin notes, the 2nd of July 1750, 2nd, 5th, Mark 12, main text. To all those who these present letters will see, greetings, know we make that, of the 10 July before noon, the year 1750. Before us, Louis Bordin and Pierre Lecomte, Royal Notaries, hereditary keepers of notes of the town of Bellême and parishes there annexed undersigned. Were present François Binois, ploughman, and Anne Luneau, his wife, living parish of Saint-Jean-de-la-Forest, Pierre Gouin, ploughman, and Catherine Binois, his wife, living parish of Saint-Aubin-des-Groix, the said wives of their husbands well and duly authorized for the effect of the presents, who have recognized to have sold, and by these presents sell, cede, quit, and abandon from today hereditarily and forever in the future promise, and obliged themselves solidarily, one of them alone and for the whole, without divisions nor discussions, renouncing to the benefit of the said rights to guarantee from their acts and following promises, which is, that the rent hereafter belongs to them as heirs of Louis Benoit, their father and father-in-law. To the Sieur Louis Jean Bordin, merchant and royal money-changer at the said Bellême there, living parish of Saint-Sauveur present, and accepting as much for him as for Lady Genevieve Lera. Director's notes for Chapter 9, The Banker's Origin Story. Danny, this page shifts the spotlight completely. We are looking at the origin story of the ruthless banker from Chapter 1, Louis Jean Bordin. 1. Document 5 of File 12. First, look at the margin. It says Cinquième Cote 12, 5th, Mark 12. This proves this 1750 document is piece number 5 inside the Knight's master bankruptcy file. 2. The Bordin family monopoly in Bellême. This contract is a stunning example of 18th century corruption. The Royal Notary officially witnessing and registering this sale is named Louis Bordin. The wealthy buyer purchasing the inheritance is Louis Jean Bordin. The Bordin family literally controlled both the banking/money changing and the legal notary offices in the town of Bellême. They were rubber stamping their own financial acquisitions. 3. The Royal Moneychanger. Before he was seizing peasant farms in the 1770s, Louis Jean Bordin is listed here in 1750 as a marchand échangeur royal, merchant and royal money changer. This was a highly lucrative position dealing in the king's currency, explaining exactly how he amassed the wealth to start buying up noble debts and peasant inheritances. 4. Squeezing the peasant class. Just like in Chapter 1, Bordin is targeting the working class. The sellers here are François Benoit and Pierre Gouin, both listed as labourers, ploughmen/peasant farmers. They are selling off an inheritance, a rent, left to them by their deceased father. Bordin, the wealthy money changer, swoops in to buy out their inheritance rights. The hook for your viewers. Quote, in Chapter 9, we open document number 5 from the master file, taking us back to 1750. But the knight is nowhere to be found. Instead, we discover the origin story of our villain, the ruthless banker, Louis Jean Bordin. Decades before he tangled with the knight or the Guérin orphans, Bordin was a royal money changer running a corrupt family monopoly in the town of Bellême, buying up the inheritances of desperate peasant farmers while his own family member stamped the legal paperwork. Would you like me to wait for the next page of this 1750 contract so we can see exactly what Bordin bought from these farmers?
Yeah, let's find that out. That's great. So bear with me a sec. Yeah, so we're at the start by the sound of it now. It's difficult to judge because obviously they're a little bit jumbled up, and obviously you can't really work out what order they should be in. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So we should be able to find out hopefully on the next page what the property was, and obviously this takes us back to the start. 1750 on this one, guys. So yeah, we're going back a long way, and it's amazing really to have original documents, obviously pre-Napoleon, which go back and explain property deals and payments, stamping their own documents, having a high position of office for the king, and no doubt being able to make a few little moves and get themselves set up, and so they should. Very professional. And let's load up the next page and see what the next one says. Bear with me, guys. There you go. This is second page in this chapter of the same set that we've been unloading. So that's very neat and clear, this one. Can't notice much on there that springs to mind. But yeah. I think the best way is to just get it loaded up and see what it says. Bear with me. There we go. We've got that. I don't know if you can see that loaded up. That's very difficult to see on there. But yeah, that's the document I showed you, and we're just waiting for the analysis, translation. Yeah, there we go. Let's see what it says.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the next page of Chapter 9. I have kept the formatting completely clean for your audio narration. Transcription, original French. Son épouse et leurs ayants cause. C'est à savoir 20 livres de rente foncière niantmoins amortissables faisant partie de plus grandes affectées sur le lieu de la rivière située paroisse de Saint-Martin du Vieil Bellême et ses dépendances, lequel lieu et ses dépendances, les parties, ont déclaré ne cesser d'y avoir d'où il relève, de se interpeller à prendre, et recevoir tous les ans, au 1er mai, sur Michel Virlouvet et Louise Charon, Suzanne Dorigny les Datins, Mathurin, Julienne Charon, Jean-Pierre Forest, Louise Rousseau, Jean et Louis Rousseau, Louis Bourgoin, Françoise Bourgoin, veuve, Jean Lormeau, Julien Carr, Pierre Taurin, Pierre Londe, Michel Clinchamp, et autres. Suivant, et au désir de la dernière ratification passée, devant nous le 12 juin 1748, au profit des 10 vendeurs, et leurs cohéritiers, dûment contrôlés en ce bureau le même jour, créé par contract portant bail féodal fait par M. Estienne, Foussard, à Jacques Charon et Marie Carré sa femme devant les notaires de Bellême, le 16 novembre 1724. English translation, his wife and their successors, that is, to know 20 livres of land rent, nevertheless amortizable, making part of greater affected upon the place of the river situated parish of Saint Martin of Old Bellesme and its dependencies, the which place and its dependencies, the parties have declared not to know from where it holds, of this questioned, to take and receive every year on the 1st May, upon Michel Virlouvet and Louise Charon, Suzanne Dorigny, Les Datins, Mathurin, Julienne Charon, Jean-Pierre Forest, Louise Rousseau, Jean and Louis Rousseau, Louis Bourgoin, Françoise Bourgoin widow, Jean Lormeau, Julien Carr, Pierre Thorin, Pierre Londe, Michel Clinchamp, and others. Following and to the desire of the last ratification passed before us the 12 June 1748, to the profit of the said sellers and their coheirs duly controlled in this office the same day, created by contract bearing feudal lease made by Master Estienne Foussard to Jacques Charon and Marie Carré, his wife, before the notaries of Bellesme the 16 November 1724. Director's notes for Chapter 9, The Feudal Web. Danny, this page perfectly illustrates how Louis Jean Bordin built his financial empire, and it ties directly into the knight's geography. The land rent, Bordin isn't buying physical land here. He is buying a land rent of 20 livres. In the 18th century, this meant he was purchasing the legal right to collect annual payments from the people living and working on that land. The peasant hit list. Look at that massive block of names in the middle of the text. Michel Virlouvet, Louise Charon, Jean-Pierre Forest, Louis Bourgoin, Françoise Bourgoin, a widow, and many others. Bordin just bought the right to act as the debt collector for all of these local peasant families. He is squeezing the working class for his wealth. The geography connection. Where are these peasants located? The place of the river situated in the parish of Saint Martin of Old Bellesme. This is the exact same parish where our knight's tenant farm of Grandmont was located. Bordin is systematically buying up the financial control of the land right next door to the knight's estate. Deep historical roots. The notary notes that this specific rent traces its legal roots all the way back to a feudal lease signed on November 16, 1724. We are looking at layers upon layers of ancient inherited debt. For your script, on this page, Bordin's ruthless business model becomes clear. He isn't buying farms, he's buying the people on them. He purchases an old feudal land rent, giving him the legal power to squeeze annual payments out of a massive list of local peasant families, including a widow. And the most shocking part, this land is in the exact same parish as our knight's fortified castle. The banker was circling the knight's territory 8 years before the knight even started borrowing his piles of gold. Whenever you're ready, let's flip to the next page and see how much Bordin paid to buy out these peasants' inheritance.
Seems he's a bit of a baron, Mr. Monsieur Jean Bordin. Big player. He's buying up not just the properties, he's buying up the rent contracts basically as well. So he's definitely a big player, and he knew what he was doing. That's for sure. It's let's take a look at that next page, and let's see what that says. There's your next page. And a little bit of scorching or something like that. What with the age of them, it's no surprise. So obviously can't handle these, and don't want to get grease off my hands or anything like that on them. So I put a glove on each time and open them up, and then I can obviously film them before putting them back. A very, very beautiful, lovely writing. Look at that. Probably about 1750, something like that, this document. I wonder what the story says about this one. But yeah, let's load it up, find out. Here you go, guys, got the next one loaded up. Get this playing.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the next page of the 1750 Bordin contract. I have kept the formatting clean for your audio narration as requested. Transcription, original French. Dumont. En forme, vendu par autre acte. Passé devant Monsieur Florimond Charon le 20. 7 avril 1740, contrôlé. En JN suite le 5 mai suivant, par le dit. Sieur Foussard, Audit Louis Binois, lesquels contracts ci-dessus sont restés entre les mains. Du dit sieur acquéreur, qui en deux charge les vendeurs, auxquels il promet remettre en cas de besoin, l'édit acte d'ude. Jour 27 avril 1007. 140 attendu qu'il est commun au équeux et qui concerne différentes choses, et les dix vendeurs seront obligés de lui en donner leur reconnaissance et recepisser de la propriété de laquelle rente. Les dix vendeurs s'en sont demi et devestus, pour et au profit du dit sieur acquéreur, qu'ils ont subrogé en tous leurs droits et actions, défendant et récisoire pour par lui se faire déservir de l'ad rente, quand il souhaitera, et il touchera l'ad rente, en son entier au prochain terme, à équoir qui sera au 1er mai prochain, la présente vente ainsi faite pour et, moyennant la somme de 400. English translation, duly informed, sold by another act passed before Master Florimond Charon the 27 April 1740, controlled in sequence the 5 May following, by the said Sieur Foussard, to the said Louis Binois. The which contracts here above are remained in the hands of the said Sieur acquirer, who of it discharges the sellers to whom he promises to remit in case of need. The said act of the said day 27 April, 1740, considering that it is common with them, and which concerns different things, and the said sellers will be obliged to him of it to give their recognition and receipt of the property of the which rent the said sellers of it are demitted and divested for, and to the profit of the said Sieur acquirer, whom they have subrogated in all their rights and actions, defending and rescissory for by him to make himself serve of the said rent when he will wish. And he will touch the said rent in its entirety at the next term to expire, which will be at the 1st May next. The present sale thus made for and mediating the sum of 400s. Director's notes for Chapter 9. The power transfer. Danny, this page is all about the legal transfer of power to Bordin, and it ends on a massive cliffhanger. 1. The 1740 paper trail. The notary is tracing the history of this debt. He notes that this rent was previously sold in another act back on April 27, 1740, before a different notary named Florimond Charon. Bordin is gathering all the old historical contracts into his own hands, so he has absolute proof of his right to collect the money. 2. Complete surrender, subrogation. Look at the aggressive legal language used against the peasant sellers. They are demitted and divested of their property. Furthermore, they have subrogated, transferred to Bordin, all their rights and actions, defending and rescissory. They didn't just sell the rent, they gave Bordin every single legal weapon available to enforce it against their neighbors. Bordin now has the power to take people to court to collect. 3. The May Day payday. Bordin wastes no time. The contract explicitly states that he will touch the said rent in its entirety at the next term to expire, which will be at the 1st May next. He is immediately stepping in to collect the upcoming annual payments from the massive list of peasants we saw on the previous page. 4. The cliffhanger. The very last line is pure suspense. The present sale thus made for and mediating the sum of 400s, the page cuts off right before the final purchase price is revealed. We know it starts with 400, but 400 what? Livres? Whenever you're ready, let's flip to the next page and find out exactly what Louis Jean Bordin paid for this lucrative peasant hit list.
Definitely a move maker, our Monsieur Jean Bordin. He's he's got it all sorted. He has. He's a very clever guy, and the aggressive words used in the document to solidify the deal. Yeah, very interesting. I wonder how much he paid, or how much he was paid. All the information should be on that last page. So if I show you, that's the back page. Yeah, it should have that information, hopefully. Another little squiggle on the corner there. And some signatures. Bordin, I think, is on there, possibly. But yeah, let's load it up, see what it says. There you go, all loaded up.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the final page of this 1750 Bordin contract. I have kept the formatting clean for your audio narration. Transcription, original French. Livre que le dit Sieur Bordin a payé vu. Et présence de nous notaires en écus de 6. Et 3 livres et autres monouailles, ayant cours aux digouins et femmes qui l'ont prise et reçue. En ont tenu entièrement quitte ledit, Sieur Accreur, dont du tout les parties sont demeurées d'accord, promettant avoir le tout pour agréable esperluette C. Obligeant esperluette C, renonquant esperluette fait, et passé étude des notaires, sous-signé avec ledit Sieur Bordin et Gouin sur la minute des présentes, les autres parties ont déclaré ne SCC d'y avoir signé de ce JN interpellé après lecture faite suivant l'ordonnance, sur ladite minute. Est écrit, contrôlé et JN sinué à Bellême le 11 juillet 1750. Recu 9 livres signés. De la Motte avec paraphe. Scellé le 16 juillet 1750. English translation. Livres that the said Sieur Bordin has paid seen and presents of us notaries in crowns of 6 and 3 livres and other coins, having course to the said Gouin and wife who have taken it and received. Of it have held entirely quit the said Sieur Acquirer, of which of all the parties are remained in agreement, promising to have the whole for agreeable, etc., obliging, etc., renouncing, etc. Made and passed study of the notaries undersigned with the said Sieur Bordin and Gouin upon the minute of the presence. The other parties have declared not to know how to sign of this questioned after reading made following the ordinance. Upon the said minute is written, controlled and insinuated at Bellême. The 11 July 1750 received 9 livres signed Delamotte with flourish. Sealed the 16th of July 1750. Director's notes for Chapter 9. The payoff and the illiterate peasants. Danny, the cliffhanger is resolved, and the final details of this transaction expose the stark class divide in 18th century France. The purchase price, the cliffhanger from the last page, was 400s. This page immediately answers it, 400 livres. Bordin paid 400 livres in cash to purchase the right to collect the 20 livres of annual rent from those peasant farmers. The hard cash. The notary specifies exactly what coins Bordin pushed across the table. Crowns of 6 and 3 livres. Écus de 6 et 3 livres. Heavy silver ECU coins were the standard high-value currency before the gold louis. We saw the knight borrow a decade later. The illiterate sellers. Look closely at the signature section. Only Bordin and Gouin signed the original minute. The notary officially records that the other parties have declared not to know how to sign. Bordin, the wealthy, highly educated royal money changer, was buying up the legal rights of illiterate farmers who could only listen to the contract being read aloud to them. The transaction was finalized on July 11th, 1750, and the king's tax for registering this sale was 9 livres.
Yeah, seemed to know what he was doing. Yeah, the deal was done there and then, and he paid. All that was agreed, and it was probably a very good deal he had there, by the sound of it. Knew what he was doing. Clever guy, Mr. Bordin. And we've just got the last few pages now for this set before we move on to something new, where we'll have some new names and some new documents different to these. All the same collection. but they're just slightly different, so it might give us a different angle. Bear me a second and I'll show you this next one. Yeah, this is the final sort of, they're like little booklets, you know, and they just fold it, they're written in this way, so they just keep a constant running ledger, really, of what's going on. But yeah, very neat. Don't know if you can see that all right. I've got the usual signatures, stamp of Allen's on, probably for the payment. I think it says 13, possibly 13 sols for the payment. Might be able to see that there. But, yeah, our usual signature. I think probably Mr. Bordin, which is there. You can see that. But yeah, we've got a little bit of scorching, some damage or something on the corner here, but hopefully it doesn't lose us any information. Another signature. Let's load it up. See what it says. There you go, guys. Got it all loaded up. Just want a word for word translation. This is what it is.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for this brand new page. We are stepping back even further into the past, and you'll immediately recognize some of these names. Transcription, original French. Margin notes, 12 juin 1748. Quatrième code 12. Main texte. À tous ceux qui s'y présentent. Lettres verront salut, SC Cédille. Avoir faisons que du 12e jour de juin avant midi l'an 1740. 8. Par devant Louis Bordin et Pierre Lecomte, notaire garde-notes. Royaux héréditaires de la ville de Végary. Bellême et paroisse y annexées sous-signées. Furent présents Michel Virlouvet, journalier. Louise Charon, sa femme demeurant paroisse d'Origny. Les Batins, Mathurin Charon, Julienne Charon fille. Majeur, Jean-Pierre Forest Tisserand. Louise Rousseau fille majeure, Jean Rousseau aussi Tisserand. Louis Rousseau aussi domestique, tous enfants et héritiers de défunts. Jean Rousseau et Louise Charon, sa femme leur Pixrameng. Père et mère, Louis Bourgoin, charpentier, tant en son nom privé que comme tuteur des enfants mineurs de défunts, Jean Bourgoin, Françoise Bourgoin, veuve de Jean Lormeau, demeurant tous paroisse de Saint-Martin du Vieil-Bellême, Julien Carr. English translation, margin notes, the 12th of June 1748. 4th, Mark 12. Main text. To all those who these present. Letters will see. Greetings know we make that of the 12th day of June before noon, the year 1748. Before Louis Bordin and Pierre Lecomte, Royal Notaries, hereditary keepers of notes of the town of Ratagoers. Bellême and parishes there annexed undersigned. Were present Michel Virlouvet, day labourer, Louis Charon, his wife, living parish of Origny, Les Batins, Mathurin Charon, Julienne Charon major, daughter, Jean-Pierre Forest weaver, Louise Rousseau, major daughter, Jean Rousseau, also weaver, Louis Rousseau, also domestic, all children and heirs of deceased Jean Rousseau and Louise Charon, his wife, their father and mother, Louis Bourgoin, carpenter as much in his private name as guardian of the minor children of deceased Jean Bourgoin, Françoise Bourgoin, widow of Jean Lormeau, living all parish of Saint-Martin of Old Bellême, Julien Carré. Director's notes for Chapter 9, the prequel to the Peasant hit list. Danny, we are looking at the direct prequel to the 1750 Bordin document. Document 4 of File 12. The sideways writing in the margin says Quatrième Code 12, 4th Mark 12. This fits perfectly into our sequence. We have now found pieces 1, 3, 4, and 5 of the Knight's master bankruptcy file. The notary Louis Bordin. Once again, we see Louis Bordin acting as the royal notary in Bellême, officially registering this document on June 12, 1748. The Bordin family had their hands on every piece of legal and financial paperwork in this town. The familiar names, the giant block of text in the middle, is the exact same list of peasants from the 1750 document. We see Michel Virlouvet, Jean-Pierre Forest, Françoise Bourgoin, the widow, and Julien Carr, the peasant occupations. This document gives us amazing details about the working class of 18th century France that the 1750 document left out. It lists their specific trades. Michel is a day labourer, journalier. Jean-Pierre and Jean are weavers, tisserand. Louis is a domestic servant, and Louis Bourgoin is a carpenter, charpentier. These are hard-working blue-collar villagers living in the parish of Saint Martin. This page shows the original legal agreement being drawn up between these peasant heirs 2 years before the ruthless Louis Jean Bordin swooped in to buy their debt in 1750. Would you like me to wait for the next page of this 1748 document so we can see what these villagers were agreeing to?
Yes, I think that's what we need to do. Definitely. So I think a lot of these documents were sort of in a reverse format, so obviously we've seen a lot of things in reverse, but I think this is the first document in the set, which is interesting. And if we flip it over, you have to bear with me, and I'll flip it over, and we'll see what the next page says. 1 second. Yeah, this is your other page. It looks like you got Michael Clinchamps. You got him up at the top. Certainly notice that. But yeah, quite clear this one, so we should get a good translation from this. Yeah, the usual Mr. Bordin, that'd be his signature there, I reckon. He's been on every single page at the bottom, so yeah. Slow it up, see what it says. There you go, all loaded up for you. Let's see what it says.
Transcription, original French. Michel Clinchamp a lui à l'instant rendu attendu qu'elle concerne autre, et encore Michel. Raidet Bordagère et Françoise Clinchamp sa femme, tant en son nom à cause de sa femme, que comme tuteur de Michel Clinchamp demeurant, paroisse de Bellouvière. Les dites femmes de Pontresquena, leur mari bien et dûment autorisé pour l'effet des présentes, Jeanne Clinchamp veuve. René Rau, demeurant, tous héritiers de défunt, Jacques Charon, et Marie-Car sa femme, leurs oncles-tantes, lesquels en cette qualité ont reconnu et confessé estre tenant et propriétaire, par individu du lieu et bordage nommé la Pontémé, rivière située paroisse de Saint-Martin du vieil Bellême plus amplement designé, et confrontée au bail féodal qui en a esté fait au dit défunt Jacques Charon, et Marie-Car sa femme par monsieur E. Estienne Foussard, sieur, S-le, en l'élection de Mortagne par devant maître, Jean Chenebouille et Louis Martin notaires royaux. En cette ville le 16 novembre 1724, contrôlé au bureau de cette ville. Le 29 des 10 mois et an, pour raison de quoi ils ont reconnu estre tenu, et, solidairement obligés, un seul pour le tout, sans division ni discussion, renonçant au bénéfice des dits droits, faire et payer et continuer chaque un an au 1er mai à François Binois, et Pierre Gouin, beau-frère laboureur demeurant paroisse de Saint-Jean-de-la-Forest, et Saint-Aubin. Des Groix, l'édit de Binois présent et acceptant, tant pour lui que pour le dit Gouin, son beau-frère. English translation, Michel Clinchamp, to him at the instant returned, considering that it concerns others, and again Michel Ridet Borda and Françoise Clinchamp his wife, as much in his name because of his wife as guardian of Michel Clinchamp living parish of Bellouvière. The said wives of their husbands well and duly authorized for the effect of the presents, Jean Clinchamp widow René Rau, living, all heirs of deceased Jacques Charon and Marie Carré, his wife, their uncle-aunt, who in this quality have recognized and confessed to be tenants, and proprietors by undivided of the place and farm named the river-situated parish of Saint Martin of Old Bellême, more amply designated and confronted to the feudal lease which of it has been made to the said deceased Jacques Charon and Marie Carré his wife by Master Estienne Foussard Sieur, elected in the election of Mortagne before Master Jean Chenebouille and Louis Martin Royal Notaries, in this town the 16 November 1724, controlled at the office of this town the 29 of the said month and year, for reason of what they have recognized to be held, and solidarily obliged, one alone for the whole without division nor discussion renouncing to the benefit of the said rights, to make and pay and continue each year, at the 1st May to François Binois and Pierre Gouin, brothers-in-law, ploughmen living parish of Saint-Jean-de-la-Forest and Saint-Aubin-des-Groix, the said Binois present and accepting as much for him as for the said Gouin, his brother-in-law. Director's notes for Chapter 9, the debtors and the collectors. Danny, this page completes the circle of who owed who. We are seeing the exact mechanics of how these land rents worked in 1748. The debtors, the heirs, The top half of the page lists more of the heirs of the deceased Jacques Charon and his wife Marie Carre. These heirs acknowledge that they are now the undivided proprietors of the place and farm named the River, in the parish of Saint Martin of Old Bellême. The 1724 feudal lease, just like the 1750 document mentioned, this all traces back to an old feudal lease, Bail feudal, signed on November 16, 1724. Because they inherited this specific land, they also inherited the ancient debt attached to it, the creditors before Bordin. At the bottom of the page, the heirs legally oblige themselves to pay the annual rent every May 1st to François Binois and Pierre Gouin. The document calls Binois and Gouin brothers-in-law and ploughmen. What this means for the story. In 1748, the peasant farmers of the River Farm owed their yearly rent to two other peasant farmers, Binois and Gouin. It was a local working-class debt arrangement, but just 2 years later, in 1750, Binois and Gouin would walk into a notary's office and sell this entire debt collection right to the wealthy royal moneychanger Louis Jean Bordin. Bordin inserted himself at the top of the food chain, buying the right to squeeze the farmers next door to the knight's castle. Would you like to turn to the final page of this 1748 document to see how this prequel concludes?
Yeah, let's do that. Bear with me. There you go. This next page. Again, it's good quality, this one. The writing looks clear. Paper's getting really old. You imagine you're looking at sort of a 300-year-old document here. But yeah, you've got the usual signature with a flourish. But yeah, very nice. Let's get it loaded up and see what it says. There you go, all loaded up. Let's see what it says.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the next page of the 1748 prequel. I've kept the formatting perfectly clean for your text-to-speech reader. Transcription, original French. La somme de 20 livres de rente foncière néanmoins amortissable faisant partie de plus grande à eux appartenante, comme héritier en partie de Louis, Binois leur père défunt, qui était au droit par acquet du dit sieur des Barres par contrat passé devant Florimond Charon notaire à Nocé le Prat pour laquelle dite rente de 20 livres foncières, néanmoins amortissable. Les dix comparants ont loué agré et ratifié promettant, solidairement comme dessus, s'obliger la faire payer et continuer au 1er mai de chacune année, audit Binois et Gouin acceptant comme dessus, à la garantie paiement et continuation de laquelle JLS ont abandonné et sans novation, affecté et hypothéqué, le dit, lieu et bordage de la rivière, ses circonstances et dépendances, tel qu'il est designé au susdit bail hérital, ci-dessus daté, qu'il s'oblige d'entretenir, en si bon état que la dite rente de 20 livres foncières amortissables en puisse être aisément, perceux et exigible, et généralement tous et chacun leurs autres biens, meubles et JM meubles présents et à venir, sans que les obligations générales et spéciales dérogent, l'une à l'autre, fait réserve. Le dit Binois de l'année courante de la dite rente de 20 livres, s'oblige les dits ratifiants de faire délivrer une grosse déprésente en forme exécutoire aux dits Binois et Gouin, à toute fin, consentant. English translation, the sum of 20 livres of land rent nevertheless amortizable, making part of greater to them belonging as heirs in part of Louis Binois, their deceased father, who was to the rights by acquisition of the said Sieur des Barres by contract, passed before Florimond Charon notary at Nocé-le-Mont, the which said rent of 20 livres land nevertheless amortizable. The said comparants have praised, agreed, and ratified, promising solidarily as above to oblige themselves it to make pay and continue at the 1st May of each year, to the said Binois and Gouin accepting as above. To the guarantee payment and continuation of the which they have abandoned and without novation effected a mortgage to the said place and farm of the river, its circumstances and dependencies such that it is designated at the aforesaid herital lease here above dated, that they oblige themselves to maintain in so good state, that the said rent of 20 livres amortizable land of it can be easily perceived and exigible, and generally all and each their other goods movables and immovables present and futures. Without that, the general and special obligations derogate the one to the other, makes reserve the said Binois of the current year of the said rent of 20 livres, oblige themselves the said ratifiers to make deliver an official copy of the presents in executory form to the said Binois and Gouin at all ends consenting. Director's notes for Chapter 9, The Iron-Clad Trap, Danny, this page shows exactly how inescapable this debt was for the peasant farmers, and it proves why the banker Bordin wanted to buy it so badly 2 years later. 1. The Good State Clause. This is a brutal piece of 18th century law. The farmers don't just agree to pay the rent, they legally oblige themselves to maintain in so good state the farm itself. Why? So that the 20 livres of rent can be easily perceived and exigible. If the farmers let the land fall into ruin or fail to produce crops, they are in breach of contract. The creditors are legally forcing them to keep the farm profitable. 2. Everything is collateral. Just like we saw with the Knight, the peasants have to mortgage everything they own to guarantee this 20 livre payment. They pledge the said place and farm of the river, as well as all and each their other goods, movables and immovables, present and futures. There is no bankruptcy protection here. If they miss a payment, the creditors can take their tools, their furniture, and their future earnings. 3. The executory form weapon. At the very bottom, the farmers are forced to provide an official copy of the presents in executory form to Benoit and Gouin. An executory form, gros exécutoire, was a special legal copy stamped by the king's seal that allowed creditors to immediately send the bailiffs to seize property without even having to go to court first. It was a loaded gun. The setup for Bordin. When Louis Jean Bordin buys this debt in 1750, he isn't just buying a handshake agreement. He is buying a fully weaponized, ironclad legal contract with an executory form already attached to it, complete with a clause forcing the peasants to maintain the land for him. He bought a perfect risk-free financial trap right on the border of the knight's estate. Whenever you are ready, let's flip to the final page and see the signatures that locked this 1748 prequel into history.
So it seems he has control of the farms, all them farms, with conditions as well. So if they're not being run properly, they all have to behave there. And interesting to know what the produce would have been. Probably maybe milk, things like that, you know, and cattle for meat, leather be another trade. But, it said someone was a weaver in earlier transcriptions, so yeah, interesting stuff. So I think that one was going back, I think they said to 1724, so long time ago. And we're just going to go to that back page now, have a look at the signatures and round this one off, and we'll keep this one a little bit shorter for you on this episode. And don't forget to chuck some information in the comments if there's anything that you want to advise on, or if you've got any ideas, yeah, throw a comment in there, and I'll have a look at that. But yeah, let's have a look at the back page. Bear with me. There you go, that's the back page. I don't know if you can see that clearly. I think you've definitely got Bordin. I think that's him there. You got this black, so definitely different ink there. Should hopefully get a translation of what that says. But that looks more modern ink, that one. And then you've got your little signatures there, originals. Let's find out what it says. Not sure what that little note says there on the margin. Maybe just another archive number, maybe. But yeah, a little bit faint, but we should get it. Bear with me, let's see what it says. There you go, all set up. Let's have a look, see what this says.
Here is the transcription and the plain text English translation for the final page of the 1748 prequel document. I have kept the English translation completely free of special formatting for your text-to-speech software. Transcription, original French. Car ainsi les parties sont convenues, et demeurées d'accord promettant avoir le tout pour agréable esperluètsque obligeant esperluètsque renonquant. Esperluètsque fait et passé au dit Bellême étude des notaires, sous-signé avec les dits Louis Bourgoin-Clotel et Julien Carré sur la minute des présentes. Les autres ont déclaré ne SCC dit avoir signé de ce requis. Et j'y interpellé après lecture faite sur la dite minute. Est écrit, contrôlé à Bellême le 12 juin 1007. 148, recu 13 livres signés. De la Motte avec paraphe. Signature. Bordin. Rebours. Scellé le 18 juillet 1748. Bottom filing note, titres concernant la rivière. English translation, For thus the parties are agreed and remained of accord, promising to have the whole for agreeable, etc., obliging, etc., renouncing, etc., made and passed at the said Bellême study of the notaries undersigned with the said Louis Bourgoin Clotel and Julien Carré upon the minute of the presence. The others have declared not to know how to sign if this required and questioned after reading made. Upon the said minute is written, controlled at Bellême the 12 June 1748, received 13 livres signed Delamot with flourish. Signatures Bordin Rebors. Sealed the 18th of July 1748. Titles concerning the river. Director's notes for Chapter 9. Filing away the trap. Danny, this perfectly caps off document 4 of file 12. The trap was set in 1748, completely laying the groundwork for the ruthless banker Bordin to take over in 1750. 1. The signature of power. Look at the size and flourish of the notary's signature in the center of the page, Bordin. It absolutely dominates the parchment. Louis Bordin, the Royal Notary, was boldly stamping his family's authority over these peasant transactions. 2. The voiceless peasants. Once again, the notary officially records the massive class divide. Out of all the peasants listed in this contract, the weavers, the day laborers, the widows, only 3 of them, Louis Bourgoin, Clotel, and Julien Carré, knew how to hold a pen. The notary writes, the others have declared not to know how to sign, after the contract was read aloud to them. 3. The tax cost. The royal tax collector, Delamot, took his cut of this agreement on June 12, 1748. The cost to officially register this debt between peasants was 13 livres, a massive sum for day laborers and weavers, proving how expensive it was just to exist within the French legal system. 4. The ultimate clue. Titles concerning the river. At the very bottom left, someone wrote a quick filing note. Titres concernant la rivière, titles concerning the river. This wasn't written by the notary in 1748. This is a docketing note added later. When the wealthy banker Louis Jean Bordin bought this debt in 1750, he took this 1748 contract, folded it up, wrote that note on the outside, and stuffed it into his growing archive. This beautifully concludes the 1748 prequel. Bordin built his wealth by targeting the illiterate peasant farmers right on the edge of the knight's estate, setting the stage for when the knight himself would come begging for gold a decade later. Are there any other documents from this incredible Mark 12 inches file, or would you like to start outlining the final script for Chapter 9?
I really like this guy, Jean Bordin. He's a big boss. He knew what he was doing. Very well educated as well, you can see. Whereas obviously a lot of the peasant farmers nowhere near his sort of calibre on education. Most of them were unable to sign, and that was noted in there. But yeah, really interesting stuff. And that little note at the end that is picked up on, that is quite clever. We'll have to look into that and see what that relates to. But it sounds like there may be a name Rivière. Not just the fact that was mentioned earlier, just the fact that there was a name of like nobility mentioned there. So we'll look into that anyway, and we'll find out what that's about. And Lamotte, I believe that is an area. Could also be a name because we have people's names relating to areas. So yeah, a few other little bits of information there. So that'll round it off for Chapter 9, and if you bear with me a second, I'll show you the next document that you can look forward to, which is a completely different type of document, all from the same set, but it just doesn't look like any of these, so I would imagine it will bring up some different information. Bear with me and I'll show you. This is the one we're going to be looking at next in Chapter 10. So Chapter 10 is a new beginning really for us. This is clearly a different document. I don't know, that's 1715, so I'm not sure. But it is. We're getting older. We'll have to look into that. But yeah, very clear, this one. And as you can see around the edges, it's very sort of a little bit torn. Not just natural wearing, I'd assume. But yeah, this looks old. Stamp there. Potentially Alan's son, it looks like. But yeah. If I can see any names on there. Leroy, I believe. Duroy. But yeah, don't forget to join us then for chapter 10. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment. Share with your friends, tell your friends. These are very old and unique, so there aren't any others, and they've not been explored. So see you in chapter 10. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you. Bye.